Hey there, YouTube. Doug Kyle Holtz here. I'm actually taking SDI's new pistol expert course, and it was recommended by the professor that we go through and start our own YouTube channel. So here I am. This is actually the first time I've done their pistol course, and I think it's their only their second running of it. So this is for the revolver portion of the course. This is my module 2 assignment, and it's going to be the disassembly of the Taurus 856 revolver. All right, a couple things before we get started. Always safety first. Make sure you got eyes and ears before messing with a weapon, and also make sure that the weapon you're using is cleared. All right, as you can see, it's cleared. The first step of disassembling the Taurus 856 will be removing this roll pin here. To do so, use a block, an 1/8 inch roll pin punch, and a mallet to drive it out. I'll just align it with one of my holes here, and we'll give it a couple quick wraps. All right, it's through. Drop the weigh in, and we'll put that into our magnetic tray for safekeeping. To remove the grip, just wiggle it back and forth, and it should come away very easily. To remove the side plate, we'll need to use 3 different tools. I've got the G3 screwdriver from Grace USA and the H2 to remove the side plate screws, and then also the yoke screw assembly. We also need something non-marring to strike with to remove the side plate completely from the frame. So starting off, I'll remove the yoke assembly, or the yoke screw assembly. Make sure that it completely locks up. This screwdriver fits directly into the slot. All right, we have the hollow screwed here. There's also a spring and detent in here that acts as a lock for our way to keep the cylinder into the frame here. Okay. We've got the spring, the detent, and the screw. Put those together. I can set that screwdriver off to the side. Next, we'll remove the side plate screws. That's 1. And 2. All right, and set those in my magnetic tray as well. Lastly, we'll go ahead and grab our revolver, and we're just going to wrap on the frame. And the side plate should come free. For the feeding portion of the cycle of operations, a double action revolver makes it very simple. By pressing the thumb piece forward, you can swing the cylinder out on the yoke assembly and access all cylinders. While the cocking phase is happening, the unlocking phase is happening simultaneously. So as the hammer or trigger cocks, you can see that the cylinder stop drops away as the trigger moves, and it unlocks the cylinder. During the cocking sequence, several things happen simultaneously. As the trigger or the hammer are cocked, the cylinder stop is allowed to drop out of the way from its cylinder notch, unlocking the cylinder and allowing it. As the cocking phase begins, the unlocking phase starts. Whether by trigger or by hammer, cocking this weapon will allow the cylinder stop to drop out of the cylinder notch as the hand rises up and meets the ratchet pad on the back side of the cylinder. This in turn begins the rotation of the cylinder and allows for the beginning of the chambering phase. For the chambering phase of the cycle of operations, once the cocking has started and so has the unlocking, chambering begins with the trigger pushing up on the hand, which in turn moves it through its track, and it presses up against the ratchet pad on the back side of the cylinder, rotating it along its axis. It'll continue to rotate until it aligns with the... As the cylinder continues to rotate, the cylinder stop plunger and the spring for it actually push back up against the cylinder stop and lock it back into place into the next cylinder notch, aligning that chamber with the bore. For the firing phase of the cycle of operations, the double action sear will disengage from the trigger slot right here in the window of the hand. This allows the hammer to rotate freely due to the compression of the mainspring, which in turn the hammer will strike the transfer bar right here. The transfer bar will strike the firing pin, and the firing pin will move forward and strike. For the extraction and ejection phases of the cycle of operations, the ejector rod, when pushed to the rear, will actually push the extractor extracting all spent casings out of the cylinder. And this completes the cycle of operation. Okay, the first thing that we're going to disassemble here after we've removed the side plate is going to be the mainspring assembly. We need to get that out of there. To do so, we're just going to cock the hammer all the way to the rear. This exposes a hole here that we're going to capture with a safety pin. All right, you can also use a paper clip. I just had these laying around, and they are super convenient because I can close them up and not worry about anything slipping off. So ride the hammer forward. All right, and you should be able to move the entire mainspring strut assembly right out. Our next step will be removing the cylinder and yoke assembly. You just have to push forward on the thumb piece, and since the detent is no longer holding the cylinder in place, we just pulled the cylinder and yoke assembly out. Make sure that it has the cylinder stop plunger and the spring for it. So we'll just set that as an entire unit to the side. Our next step will be removing the firing pin retaining pin and the firing pin and firing pin spring. This is generally pretty easy to do, but it is under spring tension. So if you do need to just decompress it a little bit to press against the spring and get the pin not having tension in its channel, it should just be able to easily remove my screwdriver, and then I just allow the firing pin to come out on its own accord. Or I may need to help it, which is what I'm going to have to do this time. All right, so we've helped it out of the way, got the spring and the firing pin, good to go. Our next step will be removing the trigger spring assembly. To do so, we'll once again have to cock the weapon. All right, this time we may need to push to the rear on the thumb button, allow it to lock into place. This will reveal a hole here that we're going to capture with another safety pin or paper clip, whichever you have. All right, and it may be slightly difficult to get into this one. So a little bit more action on that hammer, just to pull it back a little more. All right, we've got our pin in there. We will go ahead and ride the hammer forward, and it should just fall out, but if need be, you can always use a small punch just to poke it out. Oh, there we go, fell out before I even had to do anything. All right, we will capture this one if we can get it to close and keep it right there as well. Next, we need to remove the hammer. I found the easiest way is to actually get the hammer all the way to the rear, and it frees it up in the window a little bit easier. Then it should just lift away unless it wants to be a potential problem forever. There we go, start to lift away. All right, hammer, set it to the side. To remove the thumb piece, I first have to remove the thumb piece screw. And it just lifts away. I'll flip it back over one more time, and what I want to do is use another small screwdriver, and I will place my thumb over the top of the bolt spring and try and hold it in place, and I will just ever so gently press out and away with that screwdriver, not prying, just pushing, and then I will also capture my bolt spring. And this is our entirely stripped Taurus 856. Well, that does it for the 856 by Taurus. That was our disassembly video and the discussion or the talk through of the cycle of operations. There are more assignments coming, so please check back and you get to see whatever's coming up next. Until next time, this is Doug signing out. Have a good one.